Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's Monday night game between the Vikings and the Seahawks. College basketball, NBA, and NHL. Look ahead to tonight's games in all three of those sports. Bowl projections for championship week. Most of these I think are final for me, barring some upsets in the conference title games. Guess the lines for Week 14 of the NFL and my best bet of the day. Okay, Monday Night Football. Fun game. It lived up to the hype. Absolutely. Seahawks came out winners, 37-30 over the Minnesota Vikings. Seattle now the number 2 seed in the NFC at 10-2. Minnesota is your number 16 or 6th seed in the NFC at 8-4. Russell Wilson was very good. Kirk Cousins was also good. And I see some people criticizing Kirk Cousins. He can't win a big game, yada, yada, yada. Cousins played well. The issue with the Vikings was their defense and their special teams. Dan Bailey missed an extra point. There were blown coverages on defense, especially that big touchdown that put the Seahawks up 27-17 in the third quarter. It was the Wilson to David Moore 60-yard pass. That was a blown coverage right there. And Seattle's defense is not very good either. Minnesota scored a lot of points on them. And Minnesota's a good offense. And they probably have the deepest offensive roster in the league in terms of skill positions because they have 2 legit running backs, Cook and Madison. They have 2 or 3 legit wide receivers. I know Thielen's out right now, but you have Diggs. You have Laquan Treadwell, who they brought back. They also have Johnson. And then the tight ends, they have a couple of tight ends. They have Conklin, they have Rudolph, and then they have the kid from Alabama. And then their offensive line's not very good. I get it. But Bradbury's not bad. So their line's a little better than last year, but it's still not, in my opinion, among the best in the league. Like Dallas has a better offensive line. I can name a couple like playoff teams that have better offensive lines than Minnesota's. Meanwhile, Seattle, again, Russell Wilson, fantastic. That offense is pretty deep, too. I mean, Josh Gordon gives them a different dimension at receiver. They go with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They have Jacob Hollister, who's been the breakout tight end of the season so far, pretty much. I mean, there's been a couple of them, but he's certainly one of them. And then they have the 2 running backs, Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. And their offensive line, I don't think is all that great either. They have that draft bust from a few years ago. I keep blanking on his name from Seattle. And then they do have some other guys that on that line that have stepped up as well. But their defense is still an issue, and I think that may cost them a Super Bowl if they lose in the playoffs at some point, referring to Seattle. So they now take sole possession, or not sole possession, but first place in their division because they beat the 49ers on Monday Night Football. It's crazy to think that one of those 2 teams might have 13 wins and be a wild card team. That's going to be a road favorite at Dallas or Philadelphia in the wild card round. That's like that one year that the Saints were like 12-4 and they were a big road favorite at Seattle, and then Seattle beat them outright, 7-9 Seattle. And then I remember Denver won the AFC West the next year at 8-8, and Pittsburgh was a good wild card team. They were 11-5 and won the wild card. And who won the division that year? Baltimore. That division was loaded that year. It was Baltimore that won it, and then Cincinnati and Pittsburgh were the wild cards. Well, Cincinnati was like 9-7, and now it's Dalton's rookie year. But I remember that Pittsburgh team, I think, went 11-5 or 12-4 and was the 5 seed and playing Tim Tebow in Denver in the first round and lost. So it's not a guarantee that a great wild card team with 11 or 12 wins is going to win in the first round. So that's why I think it's important for a team like Seattle to win its division, and Minnesota as well, because I don't really trust Minnesota on the road in the playoffs. I mean, they could have won last night. I know they did win in Dallas earlier in the year, and those are like two big spots for Cousins in which he performed well, and granted, last night was a loss, but I don't think the Vikings are out of their division picture yet. If they beat Green Bay head-to-head and finish with the same record as Green Bay, then they'll win the division, and they'll have the tiebreaker. So I wouldn't write off Minnesota as a possible division winner yet. All right, now we'll move on to college basketball. Wasn't that many games last night. I believe there were like 20 games on the slate. I know tonight is miles busier with the ACC Big Ten Challenge and a lot of ranked teams. There's a lot of good college basketball on tonight, so we'll get into that as we progress here on the podcast. We'll pick all the ACC Big Ten games and any other notable games along the way. Holy Cross over Mercer, 81-67 in the Boca Raton. Holy Cross gets its first win finally. They're 1-7. Mercer's 4-5. Hofstra over Canisius, 64-57 in Boca Raton. Hofstra 6-3. Canisius 4-3. UIC over San Diego, 89-83 in the Boca Raton. UIC 3-6. San Diego 3-7. North Florida over High Point, 93-70. North Florida 6-4. High Point 1-7. Northern Iowa over Luther, 110-51. Northern Iowa's 8-1. Their lone loss came against West Virginia in Cancun, a game where they choked. So they arguably should be undefeated. Miami over Illinois, 81-79 in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Best bet of college basketball came through yesterday. They win outright, granted that they were up by 30 in the first half, and they let Illinois come back. They were outscored 48-31 in the second half. So that was a game that was closer than it really should have been. Miami's 5-3, Illinois 6-2. Furman loses at South Florida, 65-55. South Florida 4-4. Furman 7-2. Alon over Kennesaw State, 70-46. Alon 3-6. Kennesaw still winless at 0-6. Stony Brook over Manhattan, 65-47. Stony Brook 6-3. Manhattan 3-3. Delaware over Columbia, 84-76. Delaware is still undefeated. They're 9-0. Columbia is 3-6. Got to keep an eye on Delaware as the rest of this plays out. So that could be your big surprise mid-major this year that nobody saw coming, a la Wichita State from 2013. I don't think they're as good as that team. Murray State from last year with John Morant. We've had a couple examples. Monmouth a few years ago that didn't make the tournament. Even Murray State back in, I believe it was the year Kentucky went undefeated, was really good. And they didn't make the tournament because they didn't win the auto bid. So keep an eye out for Delaware. Maybe that's a possible sneaky surprise team. And I know there was a couple last year, Furman, UNC Greensboro, like from that SoCon, and then obviously Belmont was good last year. Wofford. So maybe that could be this year's Wofford to just keep an eye on. Tennessee Tech over Reiner, 86-47. Tennessee Tech 3-6 on the year. Wofford over NC Central, 77-59. Wofford 4-4. NC Central 2-6. Bryant over Navy, 60-45. Bryant 5-4. Navy 4-4. Stephen F. Austin over Arlington Baptist, 114-49. Stephen F. Austin 7-1. The lone loss came against Rutgers, and obviously they have that big upset win over Duke that is going to resonate with them for the rest of the season. Kansas State over Florida A&M, 76-58. Kansas State 5-2. Florida A&M 0-6. North Texas over UT Arlington, 77-66. North Texas 3-5. UTSA or UTA 4-5. Nichols over Campbellsville Harrodsburg, 120-69. Nichols is 5-4. St. Bonaventure over FAU, 71-64 in the Boca Raton. Bonaventure 4-4. FAU 4-4. Minnesota over Clemson, 78-60 in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. I was right about that. Minnesota 4-4. Clemson 5-3. I should have parlayed them in Miami. Dumb me. Liberty over Trinity Baptist, 87-28. Liberty is now 10-0, so another unbeaten to keep an eye on. Liberty had a good year last year. I believe they did make the tournament, and I don't remember if they pulled an upset off or not. I need to think, but this is another team to keep an eye on in terms of good mid-majors. And number 22, Washington over South Dakota, 75-55. Washington 6-1, South Dakota 6-3. And Washington's only loss came against Tennessee on a neutral. Tonight, big games around the sport. 5:30 North Dakota State and Indiana State. 6 o'clock Eastern Kentucky and South Carolina Upstate. Fox Sports 1, 6:30 St. Peter's and St. John. 7 o'clock Houston Baptist against number 19 Dayton. Dayton now ranked because of Obi Toppin and their great run at Maui, in which they lost to Kansas in overtime. They could have beaten Kansas, or else they'd be undefeated. It's their lone loss. So Dayton, I think, is now the favorite in the A-10. Davidson's obviously an underachiever this year. St. Louis hasn't been as good as they were last year. And the other one that was supposed to be good. Oh, VCU. VCU's had some weird losses. They lost to Purdue. Purdue's good, but Purdue has just been Jekyll and Hyde a little bit. And then VCU does have the upset win, or the big win over LSU, but that wasn't an upset. They were favored in that game. So Dayton could very well be the best team in the A-10 this year. Number 24, Butler at Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss giving one. My buddy Eli Herskovich, again on Twitter, posted his best bet, and it was Ole Miss. And the fact that they're 1-point favorite tells you that they know something. So I think that is the best pick on the board, unless if I see something even more sexier. So I think Ole Miss hands Butler their first loss tonight, and Kermit Davis picks up a big win. Bethune-Cookman and Stetson, Northern Kentucky and Miami of Ohio, Coppin State, East Carolina, Jacksonville State, George Mason, UNC Asheville, Charlotte, Wright State hosts Western Kentucky, Chattanooga, Western Carolina, St. Andrews at Appalachian State, ESPNU, Northwestern at Boston College. This is a absolutely disgusting game. Neither of these teams are very good. BC's giving 3.5, and I'm taking Northwestern getting the 3.5. I think they can win the game outright. Northwestern has been a little better since losing a couple bye games to Merrimack and Radford lately. So I think that they have a good chance here to win on the road. Pressure's off of them a little bit because all the pressure's on Jim Christian to get the big win. So give me Northwestern plus the 3.5 to win the game outright. Coker and Gardner-Webb, Lafayette St. Joe's, Richmond Hampton. By the way, Richmond only one loss now, so Auburn. Quinnipiac, Fairleigh Dickinson, Bucknell Rider, UMBC American, Dartmouth, Georgia State, Old Dominion, William & Mary, Detroit Mercy, Kent State. Kent State only has one loss on the season. Oakland and Western Michigan, Loyola Chicago, Ball State, Valparaiso and Eastern Michigan. Eastern only has one loss all year. ESPN2, Big Ten ACC Challenge, Iowa, Syracuse. Syracuse is giving 4.5. And guess what? I'm taking another underdog. I'm taking Iowa to cover the 4.5. I don't know if they'll win the game outright. I'm not as confident in them as I am in Northwestern over Boston College, but Iowa could be good. They beat Texas Tech, and I think that this could be a surprise in the Big Ten this year. So give me Iowa plus the 4.5. I don't know if they'll win the game outright. I think they can. But if you ask me who do I think will win straight up, it's Syracuse. But I just think that this is a close game. And BPI favors Syracuse as well. So Syracuse to win, Iowa to cover. CBS Sports Network, Vermont and Cincinnati. Cincinnati's giving 7. I think Vermont covers. I think they're live here as well. But I'm not sure if they're going to win or not. Big one, the biggest game of the night, 7:30, ESPN, number 4 Michigan, number 1 Louisville. Louisville is giving a whopping 5.5. Give me Michigan plus the points. I think Louisville should be favored by only 3. I think these teams are even. I love this Michigan team, and I think they are absolutely live here. Do I think they'll win? I think they're due for a loss, and I think that Louisville will probably win, but I want to pick Michigan to win this game outright so bad. But they're just riding so high right now, courtesy of upset wins over North Carolina and Gonzaga. And if they pick up this win, then they're easily the best team in the country, with the best resume in the country. No doubt about it. But I do think this game will be close. I think Louisville wins by 3. So give me Michigan plus the 5.5 in what is the biggest and best game of the night. And there's another big game later on, but this is bigger because of both teams were unbeaten. Maryland Eastern at number 18, Baylor, Lipscomb, Belmont, Columbia International, Middle Tennessee, Auburn, Montgomery, Stanford, McNeese, OCU, Harrodsburg, 8 o'clock A&M, Corpus Christi, UTSA, Omaha, Arkansas State, Southeast Louisiana, Sam Houston State, Texas Rio Grande, Murray State and Missouri State, Milwaukee Drake, UAB Texas, Austin P Arkansas, Charleston Southern Missouri, Buffalo Vandy, Northwestern SMU, Oral Roberts Creighton at 8:30 on Fox Sports 1, 9:30 CBS Sports Network Bradley at number 15 Memphis, Big Ten ACC Challenge big game, number 17 Florida State at Indiana. Indiana's giving 1.5 and they're undefeated. I'm going to lay with Indiana. I think a lot of people will pick Florida State in this game because they're ranked and they have big wins over Tennessee, Florida, and Purdue. But I just think that Archie Miller is just due to have a breakthrough win with this program, and I think this is the golden opportunity. So give me Indiana minus 1.5, and I think the line is reflecting it a little bit. And this is similar to Ole Miss and the hashtag Vegas knows. So give me Indiana minus 1.5, and I think they win by 7. UTEP and New Mexico State, Mount St. Mary's Grand Canyon, Jackson State, Denver, New Orleans, LSU, Illinois State, Big Ten ACC Challenge, Rutgers, Pitt, 9 o'clock ESPNU. Pitt's favored by 3. I'm thinking Pitt, the win and cover. They're better than Rutgers. Rutgers has 1 loss on the year. I think it was against, if I'm not mistaken, like St. John's or VCU. Who was it against? Who they lose to? Oh, St. Bonaventure. And St. Bonaventure's not very good this year. The BPI projects Pitt, and I think Pitt will win and cover. Pitt's been a little better since they lost to West Virginia, and I think that they'll go out and win this game potentially by double digits. The game that most people thought was going to be the biggest game of the night about a month ago, number 10 Duke and number 11 Michigan State, 9:30 ESPN. Michigan State's giving 6.5. That's a big line. I think this is an overreaction to Cassius Stanley being out for Duke. And I think it's an overreaction to Duke losing to Stephen F. Austin. But that said, I think Michigan State's going to win and cover. I think that the injury to Stanley hurts. I love Vernon Carey, and I think he's been great this year and playing his way into possible lottery pick status, but I'm going to take Michigan State minus the 6.5. Cassius Winston will be the best player on the court, and I think Michigan State wins by 12 or 13 points, and it won't be in doubt within the last 3 minutes of the game. So give me Michigan State minus the 6.5. This is either the lay it or don't play it situation, in my opinion. And I think that Duke will miss Stanley. And I think that Tom Izzo gets, let's face it, a much-needed win. I think this is a bigger game for Michigan State than for Duke because Michigan State's home. Michigan State has 2 losses compared to Duke's 1. And let's face it, that Duke loss was a fluke. They lost at the buzzer to Stephen F. Austin. And I think that Duke's just fine. So give me Michigan State minus 6.5 in a game that they, I think, have to win. 10 o'clock in Carnarvon, Seattle. Santa Barbara, Cal State, Bakersfield. Sacramento State hosts California, Merced. And 11 o'clock CBS Sports Network, Arizona State, San Francisco. Arizona State is giving 1.5 on the road. And I would prefer to lay it here with the Sun Devils. Better team, better coach. As good as San Francisco's been this year, I think that Arizona State's better. And meanwhile, BPI projects San Francisco to win. I just think that Arizona State's better. San Francisco's lone loss came against Hawaii recently. So give me Arizona State in that one. Okay, now we'll do NBA. Some interesting games last night. I believe there were 6 or 7 games on the board, and there's not that many tonight. Actually, no, there's 7 tonight, and there were 6 last night. Suns over the Hornets, 109-104. Suns 9-10. Charlotte 8-4. 76ers over the Jazz 103-92. Sixers 15-6. Utah 12-9. Hawks over the Warriors 104-79. I was way off on this game. And another bad pick by me. Seeing a bad team giving that many points. I should have known from a few weeks ago. And the Knicks were giving 6 against Cleveland, and they crushed them. And the Hawks were giving 6.5, and I took Golden State. But I was clearly wrong. Atlanta's 5-16. Golden State's 4-18. Now it's the toilet bowl this year, and it lived up to it pretty much because it was a bad game. Pacers over the Grizzlies 117-114. Indiana 13-7. Memphis 6-14. Bucks over the Knicks 132-88. A absolute beatdown. Milwaukee 18-3, New York 4-17. Milwaukee might be the best team in the league. Like, they're just blowing everybody out at home. They have the best player in the league, and they have a fantastic head coach. Meanwhile, David Fizdale, I think, is on the hottest seat in the sport, and I won't be shocked if he's fired while I'm recording this podcast. Bulls over the Kings 113-106. Chicago 7-14. Sacramento 8-11. 7 games tonight. 7 o'clock. Pistons at the Cavs. Magic at the Wizards. 7:30 Heat at the Raptors. Mavericks at the Pelicans on TNT. Rockets at the Spurs at 8:30. 9 o'clock Lakers at the Nuggets. And 10 o'clock on TNT. The Trailblazers at the Clippers. So 2 TNT games tonight. Dallas laying 4 on the road at the Pelicans. This one's tough. The Lakers were giving 6.5 at the Pelicans a few weeks ago, and the Pelicans covered. And the Mavericks are giving 4. I just think that's a lot of Luka respect. The Pelicans haven't been all that great. Meanwhile, Luka has been that great. Last time I bet the Mavericks as my best bet on the show, it came back in haywired. I'll take the Mavs here to win and cover, but it's not going to be my best bet on the board in terms of the NBA board. And then Blazers, Clippers on TNT. Clippers giving 9.5. I believe these two teams already met in LA this year already. And I think the Clippers won. And they won big. Portland obviously now has Carmelo Anthony on their team. They won. They played at the Clippers on November 7th and lost by 6. So it was a close and competitive game. The Clippers obviously have both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George back. And it's just tough to bet against them when both those guys are playing. So I'm going to assume that they both play. And I'm going to lay the 9.5 with the Clippers. Carmelo Anthony's kind of led this Portland resurgence. It's just crazy to me. Melo won the Western Conference Player of the Week, which is awesome for him. It's good to see him like rejuvenated a little bit in a different role on a possible contender. But it's just tough to bet against the Leonard-George duo. And the Clippers don't play tomorrow, and they didn't play last night, so I expect both guys to play, and I think they'll win, and they'll win by 15. So give me the Clippers minus the 9.5 tonight. Meanwhile, my best bet on the NBA board tonight, I'm going to go with the Raptors minus the 5 at home against the Heat. The Raptors have just been gold to me this year, and the Heat are getting Dion Waiters back tonight, but I just think that the Raptors are better than the Heat, and Pascal Siakam has played like a top 10 player so far this season, so give me the Raptors minus 5. I think they possibly win this by double digits. Like I said, I've really won a lot of money with the Raptors this year, and I think that I think they could do it again for me here tonight. So give me the 5.5 with the Toronto Raptors as my best NBA pick of the night. Now we'll talk about the NHL. A few games on the slate last night. I think tonight's a busier slate. So without further ado, here we go. 5 games last night, so it wasn't all that busy. Sabres over the Devils 7-1. Now the John Hines watch is on for New Jersey. Buffalo 13-10-5. New Jersey 9-13-4. Golden Knights over the Rangers 4-1. The Good win for Vegas, 14-11-4 New York, 13-10-3. Islanders over the Red Wings 4-1. Islanders avoid the trap, 18-5-2. Detroit 7-20-3. Blues over the Blackhawks 4-0. St. Louis 18-5-6. Chicago 10-12-5. Ducks over the Kings 4-2. As the Ducks go to 12-12-4. LA 11-15-2. Bigger slate tonight, 7 o'clock. You have the Hurricanes at the Bruins, the Islanders at the Canadiens, Wild at the Panthers, Golden Knights at the Devils, Maple Leafs at the Flyers, Coyotes, Blue Jackets, 8 o'clock NBCSN, Lightning, Predators. Kenny Albert, Pierre Maguire on the call. They're normally the Tuesday night crew. The Rangers are off, the Knicks are off, so I expect Kenny Albert to be there on hand with Maguire. Maybe it's, Brendan Burke, the Islanders at the Canadiens, so it's not Brendan Burke. The Hurricanes play, so it's not John Forslund either, so I expect it to be Kenny Albert. Nashville's pretty much a pick 'em at home. So I just have to pick the game straight up, and that's what I normally do with hockey when they're on national TV. And the team I'm going to take in this game will be the Preds at home. Tampa Bay's been a little disappointing this year. They have 27 points on the year. This is not Tampa Bay of old. And this is obviously a team that's window, I think, is closed. And the Predators, I think their window's closing as well. But anyway, I'm going to take the Preds at home. High-scoring game. Stars at the Jets, 10 o'clock Senators at the Canucks, and Capitals at the Sharks at 10:30. In terms of a favorite hockey pick, I don't think it's the Predators. How are the Islanders plus 110? How are the Islanders an underdog at the Canadiens? Someone explain that to me. The Canadian season is really in shambles. They have to make some changes. Philadelphia is a home dog against Toronto. So if I had to make a good pick for tonight, and then the Sharks are enticing at home against the Capitals as well as a home dog. But I'm going to go with the Flyers as my best hockey bet, as a even money underdog against the Maple Leafs. I think that Philly should be favored here. They've been playing very well lately, and I think that they are going to beat the Maple Leafs at home. That's the pick I feel the best about in terms of value. So give me the Flyers as a home dog against Toronto. As badly as I want to take the Islanders, that might be the Vegas is trying to tell you something game. Kind of like Ole Miss against Memphis in college basketball to some degree, because you probably are asking yourselves, why the hell are the Canadians favored over the Islanders? And the Islanders have been red hot. So, best hockey pick, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Flyers on even money on the money line against Toronto. Okay, now we'll do bowl projections for week number 15 of college football. A lot of these are going to be my final projections. I'm probably going to make some changes to my projections before the Bulls come out on Sunday. But obviously, I'm not going to have a podcast over the weekend. But on my regular blog, I'll probably have my absolute final Bull projections posted at the end of Saturday night. And then I'll reveal what they were/are on Monday's podcast next week and see how close I am to getting all the Bulls correct. So, without further ado, here we go. Week 15, Bull projections. College football playoff, I have number 1 Ohio State against number 4 Utah in the Peach Bowl. In the Fiesta Bowl, I have number 2 LSU against number 3 Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl. Rest of the New Year's 6, Cotton Bowl, I have Memphis and Wisconsin. Orange Bowl, Virginia and Alabama. Rose Bowl, Oregon, Penn State. And Sugar Bowl, Georgia and Oklahoma. Other bowl games: Bahamas, Charlotte and Buffalo. Frisco, Liberty, Southern Miss. New Mexico, Western Kentucky, Utah State. Cure, UCF and Georgia Southern. Boca Raton, Tulane and Central Michigan. Camellia, Ohio and Louisiana. Vegas, Boise and Washington State. New Orleans, FAU, Appalachian State. Gasparilla, SMU, Marshall. Hawaii, BYU, San Diego State. Independence Bowl, Louisiana Tech and North Carolina. Quick Lane, Pitt, and Michigan State. Military Temple in BC. Pinstripe, Florida State and Illinois. Texas, Kansas State, and Tennessee. Holiday, Michigan, and Arizona State. Cheez-It, Nevada, and Iowa State. Camping World, Virginia Tech, and Oklahoma State. First Responder, UAB, in Texas. Music City, Wake Forest, and Mississippi State. Redbox, Notre Dame, and Washington. Belk, Louisville, Kentucky. So that's a fun rivalry in the bowl game. Sun, Miami and Cal. Liberty, Cincinnati, and Toledo. Arizona, Hawaii, and Georgia State. Alamo, Baylor, USC. Citrus, Minnesota, and Florida. Outback, Iowa, and Auburn. Birmingham, Eastern Michigan, Navy. Gator, Indiana, Texas A&M. Famous Idaho Potato. Western Michigan Air Force. Armed Forces, Kent State, Wyoming. And Mobile, Alabama, Miami, and Arkansas State. Guess the lines for week number 14 of the NFL season. I'm going to give out my guesses and then go to DraftKings for the actual lines. So without further ado, here we go. Cowboys at the Bears on Thursday Night Football. I have the Cowboys favored by 3 points. That was such an easy pick, and that's what the line is. Panthers at the Falcons. I have the Falcons giving 2.5 at home, and the Falcons are giving 3, so a half point off. Ravens at the Bills. I have Ravens by 3. It's Ravens by 5.5. That's big. Bengals at the Browns. I have the Browns by 10, and the Browns are favored by 8.5. Redskins Packers. I have the Packers by 13, and it's Packers by 12, so 1 point off. Lions at the Vikings. This was a dumb pick by me because I forgot that the Lions are on their third-string quarterback. I said Vikings by 8.5, and it's 13.5, so I deserve to lose that one and be way off. 49ers at the Saints. I have the Saints by 4. I don't get why this is a 1 o'clock game. Saints are favored by 3, so 1 point off. Dolphins at the Jets. This was a ridiculous guess, too, because I just thought that Vegas continued to overvalue the Jets a little bit and undervalue the pathetic Dolphins. I said Jets by 12.5, and it's actually Jets by 5. So I was well off on that one. This was the toughest one for me to figure out the whole week. Colts at the Bucks. I have Bucks by 1.5, and it is Bucks by 3. Broncos at the Texans. I have Texans by 7. It's Texans by 8.5. Chargers at the Jaguars. I have Chargers by 3, and that's what it is. Titans at the Raiders. I have Raiders by 1. It's actually Tennessee by 3. That's just how much the Titans are gaining respect from Vegas and people just jumping off the Raiders after 2 bad losses. Chiefs at the Patriots. I have Patriots by 3, and that's what it is. Steelers at the Cardinals. I have Steelers by 1.5. And Steelers by 2.5, so it went up a point. It actually was 1.5 yesterday. Seahawks at the Rams. I have Seahawks by 2, and it's Seahawks by 1. And then Giants at the Eagles. I have Eagles by 11 on Monday night, and it's 8. So some picks I was spot on, like Cowboys and the Patriots, and others I was way off on, like the Vikings and the Jets. And a little bit off on the Eagles. One more thing to discuss before Best Bet. A free agent signing had just broke while we were doing this. Jake Diekman signed with the Oakland Athletics on a 2-year deal. A nice signing. Oakland is a team that I think has a chance to make a jump next year, especially if the Astros deal with some punishments, which I am certainly expecting. Obviously, Diekman was a reliever on the Royals, who got traded to the Athletics at the trade deadline, so Oakland brings him back. Diekman's reliable. He's somebody that could go multiple innings if needed. He's somebody that has a career ERA of 3.9. He got traded at the end of July last year for Ismael Aquino and Darian Blanco. And then it's funny because he became a free agent and the Athletics declined his contract option, so it's funny that they re-signed him. But hey, he's a good pitcher, good reliever. He'll help them over the next few seasons. And obviously every baseball move we'll talk about on this podcast. I'm going to have Terry Cushman on tonight to preview the winter meetings with me and make some predictions and all that other stuff. I haven't had Terry on since August, so it's going to be fun catching up with him. All right, best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings. We're going to go to college basketball. We are going to go with George Mason against Jacksonville State. George Mason's been very good this year. Richmond at Hampton. I don't feel super about that one, but we'll roll with it. Kent State over Detroit. We'll take Belmont over Lipscomb. We'll go with Texas over UAB, Arkansas over Austin P, Louisiana Lafayette over Southeastern Louisiana, Creighton over Oral Roberts, Memphis over Bradley, LSU over New Orleans, TCU over Illinois State. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm going to go with Michigan State over Duke, just to make it a little fun and interesting. And then Seattle over Incarnate Word. That's so plus 175. Wagering $3, payout $8.24. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything from college basketball with the ACC Big Ten Challenge, and then the NBA and NHL look ahead to tomorrow. Guests for tomorrow include Jeff Maglicetti. We'll talk about winter meetings, football, and a lot more. Thursday is a big day. Jake Brown at 1 o'clock. Sean Verma around 5. Doug Saravo 6:30. But if John Hines gets fired from the Devils, maybe we'll do Doug a little before that. So that'd be like an emergency podcast if that happens. If the Knicks fire David Fizdale this week, I'll probably have an emergency guest on for that as well. Probably Ryan Berger. And then Friday I'm going to have Jeff Burns talk some ponies, college football, baseball winter meetings, and a lot more. Hope you guys have a great day, everybody.